That's how we make a agreement or a way of knowing and being together. We do it with the kids in all sorts of situations for, small group time, hallways, bathrooms. We have one for the staff laminator, whatever we need to do. So that we all have the same understanding and we know what we need for ourselves and from each other to make our community be as productive and efficient and effective as possible. Like, what is it that we need? And so even with little kids, we would say something like essential. Another word for essential might be an important. If it's an important agreement. So we like to do this too in our adult world. What kind of things do we need to think about as a community, as a site council community, to go forward with our work when we're working together? What is it we can expect for ourselves and for each other? And I'm just going to write all the ideas down and we can wordsmith it later or start combining ideas or however we want to do it. But for now, let's just have it. Part of it, the power is in the discussion. Like, what is it we want to seek?
Maybe a staff member could throw it out so we know kind of what our ideas could be.
I'm eating some bread.
I'm working on it. Hold on.
I would say, like, in the vein of communication and transparency. So thinking about not doing a good job at wordsmithing it. I'm just coming up with a couple bullet points here. Communicate in a variety of ways to hold transparency at what something communicate in a variety of ways.
I want to add another complicated one on top of that, which is like making sure like the system for things that we talk about doesn't get in the way of ideas. Like I think about like, okay, we're going to generate a docket for next time. We kind of have to figure out how to do that as a group so that we can all bring ideas to that.
Not as good as Mr. DePaz's chart making, but it's kind of straight.
Yeah, it looks great.
Kind of straight. For now.
So that's an inside joke because I have really nice handwriting.
Really nice.
Primary.
I'm afraid to say that. And so whenever I write, everyone's always surprised at how neat my writing is.
Very neat.
Because I'm a male, and sometimes they think I'm just going to scribble it up there, but I have nice handwriting. So
sometimes you use just a bone or something.
Yes. That's better.
Is that a value that was written down there?
It's on the charts, yes.
So an essential agreement can also be, in a funny way, that we don't all have to write the same.
Right.
I don't know why this word is coming to mind, but accountability. I don't know, accountability to each other, to the school, the vision, mission.
I would like to just add community to that one.
Yeah.
One of the pieces that sticks out to me from the even the draft of kind of site council's purpose is the idea of being part of the solution. So maintaining, being part of the solution. So acknowledging the problem, but also staying solution oriented.
I don't know how to stick this, and maybe it's already been said in a different way, but I'm just asking myself, like, like if we're making a decision about something, maybe always asking ourselves like who's not here, who's not been included yet, or has, you know, and should we do that before acting on whatever decisions get made?
And then being reflective as well in that, but then overall as well.
Sorry, Cassidy.
Being reflective in that process, but then also in general, being reflective.
I was gonna ask, like, should we assume this is all an extension of the vision statement? Like, when we talk about those, like, yes, we should be reflecting, choosing, and acting in all that we do as well.
Or if we are looking at streaming this or taking clips and doing something on the website or something, after you get the speaker's approval or we decide to go about doing it. You know, I feel like Diego goes up to people and says, "Hi, I'm the principal," you know. Brenda goes up and says, "Hi, I'm the vice principal." You know, maybe we just talk about how can we interact with other parents, like when we're picking up our kids or doing other things, provide information about site council PTO and provide information, but also promote. So how do we get more people here? If we talk about it a little bit, be like, hey, did you know that the site council is working on this? Or the site council is now talking about math and literacy night. Have you heard? And I don't know if those are the right words either, but something like that. But I'm not saying you have to do it all the time. I'm just saying, you know, maybe it's something we talk about, you know.
Once a month.
Yeah. Can we do buttons this year?
Well, now we're at the end of the paper, so.
Well, I got
We're a school, we got lots.
I got paper.
No.
Is there anything we providing information to people who aren't here?
Or as a way to get input, because I'm always so curious, the people who aren't here, like, why did they choose this school? So, like, what's important to them? Like, I'm kind of here to represent my family, but, like, I'm the only person in my family who's not, I'm the only white person. So I'm always, like, trying to figure out from them, like, well, I kind of picked this school, but I kind of picked it because I thought we need it for our family. But this is what I learned, like, you need to tell me a little bit more about it.
Good point.
That's it, yeah. I really like that. I mean, I think that's something that, you know, we've been talking about having like a door knocking campaign, or how can, and if we had personal statements from families of why they chose Bancroft, that could be like a brochure in of itself.
Just as a way to understand if they can't make it here, this isn't their thing. Like, this is not my husband's thing, he wouldn't do this, but I can go back and talk to him about it and then kind of get a little more info from him and just try to be a spokesperson for in some way.
Such agreement is not something that is written in stone. We go back to them often and update them as we grow and evolve as classes or as a staff or even as a site council. I think next time we should link it to the learner profile. Like do a little tidbit on the learner profile and we can link it to, what does that mean? The learner profile is like the umbrella of being an IB learner. It's the characteristics we wish to be as human beings, that common humanity. There's 10 attributes. Inquirers, knowledgeable, thinkers, caring, open-minded, balanced, principled, reflective, knowledgeable, did I say that one?
Yep.
Okay, how many?
Risk taker, yeah.
Risk taker,
So that-
balanced.
Totally counts.
Is when on the 4 steps, balanced. Is that all 10 then? But like, you know, how does this work link to being that person that we're talking about in school all the time?
Yeah.
Ask your kids about the learner profile. You know, we're really focusing right now, especially on caring. Like that's a really easy opening to the school year. what does it mean to be caring to each other, to our classmates, and our assembly tomorrow will be about caring and kindness.
I think that's a cool idea, yeah, because that's what we want our kids to do, and then that's what our site council should do. And yeah, to bring those in and then see how they
Come back
relate
to it again and say, to deepen the discussion and change it in its perspective a little bit. Okay.
No, yeah, I like that. I mean, I just want to connect it to, so up here on top of the board here, this is how we started our year as a staff. We had a central idea of who we are, was the unit of inquiry, and then the central idea was a community is built on experiences and relationships. And we all grounded ourselves in what our values are and how our values show up at school. And so this is what every single staff member either had a single sheet or multiple sheets where they chose their top 3 values. And so I just think it's really important for us to, similar to a vision or a mission, is to keep our values at the forefront of the work that we do. Because if you're not being value first forward, I think you lose yourself and your passion and why you're here. And so we really wanted to ground ourselves in that. And so I think it's important that we do tie these essential agreements to the learner profile and to make sure that we're hopefully upholding our values as a site council, but also as a human being. So. All right, thank you all. This is kind of a harsh transition, but I just want to transition quickly into some updates. Because that's another piece I want to make sure that people are aware of the things that are happening at school, so then you can also make informed decisions. One of the biggest pieces that drives a school is enrollment. You'll find out in January and February that our budget and our funding is based on the number of students that we're projected to have. And so this year we were projected to have 500 students. Currently Bancroft is sitting at 566 students, which is a great, amazing thing. We are, for some of you kindergarten families, we have bigger kindergarten classes than we've had ever since I've been here.
Yeah.
So I think some of them, I think Ms. Marquardt's class, I think is at 28 kids. We have a couple at 26, and I think one at 27. And so that is a lot bigger than what we normally had. Because we're over in kindergarten and first grade, we've advocated, Minneapolis does what's called staffing adjustments. And so the previous year, because of the $33 million deficit and all the budget cuts that were made, they did not do any staffing adjustments in October. And so I'm advocating, because we're over in our 2 youngest grades, I think we're 17 kids over in kindergarten and 10 kids over in first grade, which is a really good problem to have because that just means they'll matriculate on through the grades if we keep them all. But I've been advocating for staffing adjustments. They had a final, they had a meeting this past Tuesday. My associate is out of town, my associate superintendent, so I've not been able to contact him to see what if any staffing adjustments we made. But most likely it'll be 1 or 2 associate educators, and so then that support will probably be funneled into kindergarten and first grade to have more support, longer time periods in kindergarten and first grade, since they are the 2 grades that are over the most right now.
So you interrupt, but is there a point where it comes that at any grade level that you would add an additional teacher, an additional classroom?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's a really hard thing to do because, I mean, if we're 17 kids over, and that would be, say, a classroom of 17, and so then, which kindergartners are you pulling away from their second mama, from their kindergarten teacher who they've already grown together with? And then the thing that worries me with doing something like that is, I really don't want to do a K-1 split. That just doesn't work. And then if you get an extra kindergarten class, then they look and see, oh, well, you have lots of space now. And so any new kindergartners, they start filling in, and so then I'm sitting with then 5 kindergarten classrooms. I'm not going to have that space, the physical space in the building to keep 5 first grades. It's good to have high enrollment, but it's also, there's also a capacity at which our building and our staff can operate. And so I would, personally, I would not want an additional teacher.
Sure.
And so I'd rather have that support, so they can have smaller groups, if they're doing a guided reading thing, or just have an additional adult in the classroom to reduce the child to adult ratio.
Sure. To follow up on that, then, what would be like the capacity, the school capacity then, in your judgment? Does that clearly it fluctuates from year to year? Sometimes there's more kids, sometimes there's less, but is there like a hard cap based on, you know?
So there is, and I don't,
infrastructure,
yep,
right?
so there is, and I don't have that off the top of my head. I know we have a couple of classrooms that are not being used as classrooms. One is a sensory room that is utilized a lot by our special ed students and our students in our ASD program. And then we have one that's used for our extended collab times and our teacher planning times. And so that's 2 classrooms. I would just think, when I think about capacity, I also think about making sure that we have the staffing that is equal to the number of students we have. So like when we started the year, I was looking at enrollment and I was freaking out a little bit because we were sitting at 607 kids.
Wow.
And that's how many kids were enrolled at Bancroft. And then, I'll use the word fortunately, there were 40 kids, come that first week of school that didn't return to Bancroft. So they either enrolled in a different school in Minneapolis or they moved out of the district. So that's why we're sitting at 566. But we had, at one point, I was looking at our roll and we had 607. And I was like, that's 107 kids over our projection. And if funding is tied directly to student enrollment, then I'm way underfunded to be housing or educating 607 kids. And so, we did have some attrition. There's usually like a 10 to 12% attrition rate in each grade, which I think is high for many of our grades, but that's kind of their blanket attrition rate that they project to all the grade levels.
So the one thing that could happen in looking at, as you're saying, like asking about, I think in the fall, yes, not adding like another level, right, or another section of like kindergarten occurs,
Right.
but we get an enrollment projection that directly correlates to our budget, and within that, it tells us how many sections of each grade level we're funding for, basically. So if for some crazy reason we're then projected next year to be at 600 students, there may be, but we just don't know for those pieces. And that's how we would then, going into another school year, be looking at those pieces. But that's based directly on the enrollment projection. That
Right,
there's some-
right, and obviously the projection isn't necessarily gonna match up with the outcome.
Correct,
Yep.
so we're like 66 students
Right,
over.
so you're trying to plan on this.
Obviously.
Yep.
But I guess my point is that one of the things that drew us here specifically to Bancroft as opposed to some of the other schools is that you did have small sizes, particularly in the early grade levels, and that you bought down class sizes as well. And I understand that this is a workaround, that having additional staff is the kind of workaround for that. Just wish that it wasn't such a mess otherwise.
Yep.
You just don't know, I guess.
Yep. And so, and that's the hard part when it's all based on projections. And I guess, we have in the past bought down to have smaller class sizes. But when you're funded for 500 kiddos and then you get 566, I would say every student, depending on varying needs, are between $6,000 to $10,000 each, and so that's a huge difference between 500 kids and 550 kids, 566 kids.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, is it normal that the projections are off like that? Or, was that a normal margin?
I will say not this much.
Right. Because follow-up would be like, how do you not make that?
Yeah. So the projections are based on the enrollment that the school has in January. And so in January, we had 504 kids, I think it was, of January of this year. And so then they take that number, they look at, one thing they did not account for, and I don't know how they make the projections, so I'm not going to throw any placement people under the bus, but they did not account for all of the choice cards. And so like the kindergarten stuff and people transferring, those are not accounted into the projections. So I think what happened is more people chose kindergarten at Bancroft than they were expecting to. And we were full in kindergarten.
And more kids chose to stay in first grade.
Yep.
This is
than-
a larger problem than just Bancroft. This is
So-
a,
This is a
Yeah.
Minneapolis
Macro problem.
district student placement problem. And
So, in essence, though, it goes back to what is the capacity, his question. Like, isn't there a capacity where the placement center says, nope, can't go there? Or you're on that waiting list, and when
Yep.
somebody dinks off, then you're in.
So these are all amazing questions that you guys are asking that I don't have
Go
the
talk
answer
to
to.
Ed, you
Yeah,
saying?
go talk to Ed, talk to Martha.
Ed Graff.
Superintendent.
And
No, but,
actually, that's funny too, I'm like, can we bring him in?
But they're not placing more kindergartners or first graders
Correct.
with us at this point.
correct.
So it's not like we're
You
gonna
guys are
keep,
full.
yeah, we're full.
Yep.
Can I ask what the negative is of, like, is there a certain threshold where like a kindergarten class size, like there's some sort of negative? I would assume mostly on the teacher. That sounds stressful.
Yep, so-
I don't know how to be a kindergarten teacher anyway. I mean, my
Totally agree with
my kid went to daycare, you know, up
Yep.
until now, and it was just basically group mentality. Like,
Yep.
the group's doing this, and just get in line with the group.
Well, that's what, yeah, it's what kindergarten is a lot of the times. But the ratio for kindergarten is 1 to 24.
Okay.
And that's the recommended ratio, so we're over that in
Yeah.
all of our kindergarten classes. I will say that, you know, we have this conversation a lot in education about class size, and I know it is a big important piece. But there's been a lot of research, mostly John Hattie has done a lot of meta-analysis on lots of other research, and what he's ranked all of the factors that influence student achievement. And class size is very far down on the list. And I don't know if he means a class size of like 40 kids or a class size of 30 compared to 24, but a lot of it is perception. I don't want to say that, but a lot of it is class size does not have a huge effect on student achievement as far as like reading at home has a larger effect on student achievement. Sleep has a larger one. So there's lots of other pieces that
I wonder if 24 was just you could lose someone.
Yep.
But like, family means are just
Yeah,
like.
Well, have you ever watched the kids? They kind of go like this.
But what
They're just like-
I mean, my kids never said like I couldn't go to the bathroom or something. She was just like,
I think
It's so funny, they're so
When I toured Bancroft and when I looked at other schools and I saw like big class sizes, I really appreciated the AEs that were in there because like
Yes.
Yeah.
you can't get around that like unless you have
We
like.
have amazing
Yeah.
AEs.
And I think like that's really important to continue funding for, and I think like that's what has to happen, because one teacher can't do it all.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
just don't, I mean, maybe it's perception, but like I guess like my mom is a teacher, and like I grew up listening to my mom, and she's like, I can't do it all. So I believe her, and I believe other teachers who are friends and colleagues of mine too, when they say that, and so I think like AEs are really important, like key pieces. The other piece that I wonder about too is, like, we want to go out and like promote Bancroft. That's going to have an impact on
Enrollment.
And so like, is there anything that we should be doing to communicate potential like enrollment increase again next year? Like, we've not door knocked.
right.
When you door knock, I feel like we've seen an uptick of like promoting, I've seen on Facebook and this, and like I've seen a lot of positive stuff about that, and I think that's made an impact. But when we go out there and start door knocking and talking about the school, there's gonna be more. And so, not to say, I mean,
Well-
I want that to be the case because.
Well, to me, that's the question, is like, is there a growth plan? And if not, I mean, it sounds like the kindergarten class enrollment has gone up or the last 2 years at least. It's not really enough to make a trend,
Yep.
but like, if it continues to go up.
So I think what we saw, we did not see the kindergarten class go up. We saw the kindergarten class that are now first graders have less attrition. And so we were able to retain more of our kindergartners going into first grade than what was projected. And so then when they made that projection, then they said, oh, well, Bancroft is going to have 20 slots. And so they filled those 20 slots, and now we're over by 11 kids.
Got it.
Because the attrition rates of our kindergarten class was less than what they projected. So which is also a good thing, which means our families are
Right,
choosing
that's
to
just
stay here.
desired outcome, right?
And so, and then one of the questions I had for like the kindergarten families from the last couple of years, and I haven't asked it out loud to them, but I don't know how much construction also had a play in keeping families away, because we couldn't tour the new classrooms or this space. And I mean, our kindergarten classrooms now with Miss Jill and Miss Kira are like a third bigger than they used to be, because there used to be 3 classrooms and now it's 2 classrooms. And so when they got tours of the building, I mean, they were confined to our H over there, which was really tiny, and there was giant walls, and this stuff didn't exist. And so I don't know if that kept some families away, and then when families came and saw the building or knew the construction was over, then they were like, oh yeah, now I can see it. I don't know. I mean, that's also a thing that could have played into lower enrollment the previous year, and then now
I mean,
families
I
are
toured
starting.
it during construction because I had tried to get my kindergartner to high five here. I don't know. And then I just looked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will look cool. And I mean, I was looking at all Minneapolis public schools. So they all are buildings from the early 1900s. And they all have the same, they're all the same style. I guess I'm picking the school environment.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily follow, therefore, that kindergarten first, as they move through the years, the batches may not be as big as they are now because attrition. Does attrition continue beyond 1?
Yep.
Is attrition because the families are moving?
So yeah,
There's no way to
so
block-
there's so many different factors. I
Okay.
mean, we have families who wanted to stay, but then they bought a house in Bloomington.
Okay.
And so they're not gonna continue to drive their kids from Bloomington here. We've had families, yeah, a lot of it is moving. Some of it is moving out of our zone. So we can bus all of
Yeah.
Zone 2, but once they move across Chicago Avenue, then they can't bus
Yeah.
to Bancroft. And so it's just a couple of those things, but the attrition rates are basically, I mean, their formula is like 10 to 12% per grade. And so then that's how they do their enrollment figures.
So I wonder, to revisit this notion of there wasn't door knocking the previous year, and what had there been, we would have really increased. Is it too granular to say we should door knock and target 3, 4, 5, and grow those years and get to the point where you're able to say comprehensively we can support, whatever pre-K, kinder, and 1 are going to be, as they climb through? I mean, is that too granular on strategy?
If we could be that sophisticated.
Yeah.
As cool as that is, we're all volunteer.
Yep.
I also think, I would say families maybe more, so if we're looking to, like, I would say, I guess a couple things, just as a Minneapolis school employee and colleague of many Minneapolis schools, I think they're all really great. I think that we have something really special here, but I'm not trying to go and take a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader who is established, say, at like Northrop and be like, come on over to Bancroft, we're really great. I think, when I think of door knocking, I think of, you're looking for a school. This is a great option, I guess. I guess there's kind of those couple of pieces of that, but.
So I think it's just to piggyback off that, I think it's capturing the market share of this area. And so if students are going to Risen Christ, or if they're going to Hiawatha Leadership, or if they're going, to a different school, maybe we want to capture the market share of this area.
Right. But not just at kinder through 1, or, I'm just trying to sort of understand the statement you're making.
Sure.
I don't necessarily try to, I guess, poach.
Yeah,
3, 4, 5.
that piece. I was just thinking of like, I guess I'm not trying to, maybe it's just really just sharing information, so I could retract my statement if we weren't straight, maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to steal kids from Falwell. I don't want to steal kids from Young. I don't want to steal kids from Northrop or Hiawatha Howe. I mean, there's so many schools within this area that and I know many of them are also at capacity and have large kindergarten classes, because I feel like.
That's the irony is that we're seeing these news articles about the enrollments are dropping in Minneapolis
And
public
that's what I'm
schools,
sort of
and that's
trying to
why I feel like
reconcile, right?
having
Yeah.
like an outreach to keep that from happening is important to do. And like this.
And so I feel like the schools in this area are not necessarily the schools that are the ones that are seeing the drop in enrollment. In fact, we did see a small drop, and that's why we're projecting at 500, but now we're back to where we should be, in my opinion. But it's true, all of Minneapolis has seen a decline, so. All right, that was a great conversation. I didn't anticipate spending that much time on enrollment, but that is a great conversation. And I know that's another thing that needs some discussion or some revisiting is the whole school choice process. And so that families are aware of how that works. Bancroft is a magnet school, and so we're not a community neighborhood school, so you have to choose to come to Bancroft as one of your choices. So how are families then getting that information and making the most appropriate choice for their family? Upcoming activities, we have a lot. October is going to be super busy. I guess I'll start off by saying tomorrow morning we do have our kindness and caring assemblies. It's something that we started last year, and so we'll continue that this year just to acknowledge students, to spread the message of being kind, and it's free to be kind to somebody, and it costs nothing, and the impact it has is huge. We're also going to talk a lot about Pride tomorrow, which is our Bancroft Pride tickets. And PRIDE is the acronym for being principled and peaceful, for being respectful and responsible, for showing integrity and being inclusive of others, being dedicated to what we're doing, and then showing empathy. And so we've been working really hard as a whole staff to develop those traits in ourselves and to develop those traits in our students. And so we're trying to really acknowledge and celebrate the positive actions that kiddos are doing. Today I just walked out to the playground and I noticed there was a bunch of wood chips on the cement on the sidewalk. And I said, oh, I don't like seeing wood chips on the sidewalk. And I started just with my foot kind of pushing them in. And then I had two kiddos kind of be like, oh, we'll help you, Mr. DePaz. And they started brushing the wood chips. And I was like, thank you for being a principled member of our community. And they got Pride tickets because we're trying to really acknowledge when kids are, doing the extraordinary, making it ordinary. And so that's what we're going to really be focusing on as we move through this year. We have Math and Literacy Family Night. Well, let me start with September 30th. We have another PTO meeting, and so the first one was very well attended, and I'm very excited that we have a full board of officers. Lots of great conversation, lots of good ideas came from that, so I'm really appreciative of the work that PTO has already done, and I'm looking forward to just the continued work. I think it's going to be amazing. October 4th, we have Coffee, Tea, and IB. That's the first Friday of October. That starts at 8:40 up here in the Media Center. We have some student presentations that are going to happen, I believe. Miss Sue?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And we'll learn a little bit more about IB and what that means for our students here at Bancroft. October 10th is our Family Math and Literacy Night. So there's a lot happening there. October 12th is a Saturday. It's my birthday. Aside from that, it is my birthday. But we have the Bancroft Family Bike Ride. So if you want to come ride bikes, you don't need a bike. We have a trailer that the 4th and 5th graders are going to be riding bikes. So we'll have some bikes available for families. Please make sure you contact Linda to reserve a bike or not a bike, or you can bring your own bikes and we take a little ride around the neighborhood.
We're going to go to, the bike ride is to Lake McComas.
Awesome.
That was on your birthday?
Yep. October 12th is also a Saturday. We are hosting, Bancroft School is hosting the Latino Parent Advisory Council. It's going to be a pretty big event at our school. They're hosting about 150 parents, they believe. Superintendent Ed Graff will be here to speak, and Alondra Cano will be here to speak to families. So it's just kind of a good event, again, I think to showcase our school. One of the student populations that we are losing is Latino families, and so I felt like this would be another opportunity to showcase our school, have them come visit, and just kind of see how great of a school this is and can be. So that is also happening on Saturday the 12th.
What time is that?
9 to 2, and then the bike ride is 10 to noon. And it's going to be all in Spanish. So if you're willing to be a risk taker, they're going to be doing parent workshops and things like that. But so it's all in Spanish. And then the bike ride, we're gonna try and stage the bike ride out on on 14th, where we have, kind of where the dumpsters are, but there's a little roundabout where people can stage the bikes. It's a pull through, so that's where we'll have the family bike ride.
That's a district-wide group, right?
Yes,
So-
yeah, the LPAC, yeah. October, I'm gonna get it wrong, 15th and 16th are conferences. And so please be on the lookout. Teachers will be scheduling those, I think, starting next week. So they'll be sending home some pamphlets or flyers with your child so you can sign up for conferences. And that's a great opportunity just to get to know your child's teacher a lot better, ask some questions about how your child is doing, and hopefully the teacher will be able to share the teacher will be able to share information about how your child is doing and how they're progressing. Sorry, I'm not going to say hopefully, they will. They're all great teachers. And then it's MEA weekend, so we have that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, there's no school. But we will have conferences on the Wednesday from, I believe it's 7:30 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. So. And I'm out of events, but I know there's more. Oh, camp.
We have our big
Oh,
camp for
Yep.
fifth graders.
Fifth grade is going up to Camp St. Croix. It's their big overnight trip. That's October 24th into 25th. So I'm sure Lisa will go. I will go again this year. It's a lot of fun. The students do ropes courses and wall climbing, and we have a campfire, and it's just a lot of times the kids say that's like their highlight of their whole career at Bancroft, and it's one night. So that's either a really good thing about the camp, or we need to do a lot more fun. I'm sure the 5 other years are here. And that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's October. So there's a lot of things coming up, and then November comes and we have Coffee Tea and IB, we have Turkey Bingo.
Yeah.
Lots of things coming up.
Yeah.
So it's just a fun, exciting time to be at Bancroft. Busy time to be at Bancroft.
Can we look at the compact?
Yeah, let's do
before
that's the
we end,
last thing we
please?
do.
Because it is a necessary piece.
All right, we'll save the school goals for the next one.
So we are what is called a Title I school. We receive some federal funding, and there are some compliance pieces that come along with it. And this is one of them, which is a family school compact. Basically kind of a contract in a way, what students agree to, families agree to, and as staff what we agree to. And every year we need to approve it by site council as well as receive feedback and changes. Last year there was a few little changes that we made from the spring, I believe that we
I probably should have highlighted them. The biggest one was at the top where it said our pledge is to support the whole child. Before it used to say support learning. And so I think we changed it to support the whole child. Another change was made for the time. We used to be a 7:30 a.m. start school, and then we didn't change the time, so now it's changed to 8:40. The other change was, sorry, I don't have that.
create classrooms where diversity,
Yeah.
equity, and inclusion are valued.
Yeah,
I
so
believe
before it
we
used to
added-
say where diversity and learning are valued, so we added equity and inclusion. And then the last bullet, connect families to necessary resources. And that was another piece that we added from feedback that we got at Site Council last year.
So if you all would like to just, I think it's a pretty easy read, just take a look at it and then offer up any feedback. We can just take a minute to look at it, approve it, or make adjustments. When you're finished, if you'll just look up from your paper so we can. Oh, look at that. Great. I'll wait one more minute here. Great. Any questions or feedback, suggestions? Yeah.
I have a question. Can
Can you tell me a little bit about what connecting families to necessary resources
That's a good
entails?
So, the conversation that we had last year, and I don't know, Cassie, if you remember this conversation or not, I feel like it was towards the end of the school year, so, was really just about our work here as a school, is not only like within our school walls here, but also caring for our families, and if we're noticing a need, or if our families come to us for a need, that we are also kind of this hub of being able to connect families through resources, giving information if needed, or whatever that resource may be, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
So this was your.
I was thinking, I don't know, I'm so like picky with words, but I was thinking like either attaching on the end of that as needed,
Mm-hmm.
or even like be a connection for families
Mm-hmm.
for necessary resources.
If you want to take those, I don't have one in front.
Yep.
I passed her if you want to.
So is.
But yeah, so it's just like, how can we, if we see a need, or we don't even have to really see a need, like, but just know that families can come in and they can expect this from us as a school. You know, we just lost our home, I have no idea what to do. Can somebody here help me and connect me to resources or anything, you know? My child just had this really traumatic event. There was a death in our family. I want my child to have help processing more than just at home. What can happen in school? You know, so it's just not the typical, I need a math tutor. But here's a struggle my family's having and how can the school help?
So is it a combination then of like available community resources as well as resources that may be provided here by the school?
Right.
Above?
Right, it's both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a list of orgs then that maybe you work with externally, partners or things like that? Is that kind of how it works, or is it just point people in the right
I would say, my experience is our social worker, our school social worker, Kathy Todd, has a wealth of information and a wealth of community. So usually if there's a need, I will kind of go through Kathy Todd in the sense of, I've noticed this family, they've either reached out to us or not, but let's talk about this. What are ways in which that we can support, as well as resources. And she, I would say most of the time says, oh yeah, we can connect, I can make a phone call to this advocate to assist with this housing situation to ensure that this family can maintain stable housing, right?
Okay.
Or maybe there's been a time or two where Ms. Todd has said, I'm not sure, let me think about it, and then we'll move forward from there. Or even like, I would say even like some smaller things in a sense of, which I also think is a big deal, but we don't have winter coats, great. I have like a whole closet here full of winter coats, or we have students who
So we
come.
make those connections
Yeah, we
with
can
people
just,
who,
So I would say, I personally don't have a list of.
I'll reach out to
organizations,
Kathy.
but,
I know her, so
she might have.
I'll reach out to Kathy. The reason I guess I'm asking this is because I was hoping last year we just didn't get it organized, but I was hoping to get some participation from nonprofit groups and community welfare groups that could come in to events that we have here at the school and table, just to say like, and that's more of establishing the relationships and the partnerships with the community. Because I thought that would be, a nice thing to have, just those, because there's already some that do participate. I mean, last year there was even Funky Grits came, I think, to the math and literacy thing, right?
that fits, funky grits with math and reading, right?
No, they came to arts night.
Oh,
It was ours.
It fits more with
It can be
us.
funky.
Hey, fine.
Are there other questions or thoughts regarding the compact?
I only also landed on that one too. I think I thought the same thought last year. I mean, I think that I think that it is important for us, for staff to be able to support that. I worry about a bottleneck happening at just a single social worker who is tasked to do all of that, and whether or not like other staff and teachers feel like they have the resources necessary to do that well. I work with organizations who do provide resources, and that's their job, is doing basic needs and support and emergency assistance and crisis management and all of that across the metro area, and it's a skill, it's hard to do. And so I just like, do they have the resources to, and development and support to be able to do that well with families that they need? And like, that's a question, because it's a noble effort. I think it's hard to do, and it's
Yeah.
not just like, you could send a family to a wrong place by not having all of the information needed. And families already get, you know, have to jump through so many hoops just to get the resources that they do need already, so. Not to say, I have no idea what the workload of the social worker is, but, you know, I know it can be hard, so.
Yeah, one thing I just want to add to that is, this is more on the school function, and I do work in a school, but that should not fall on the social worker alone by any means. You know, like, we should have more staff
Should be for the
with
community.
that knowledge,
Yep.
and even for classroom teachers to have like a baseline knowledge of here's where you can go.
So maybe that's an area
So
of
I
psych
I
council.
agree with what you're.
We could put.
Maybe as a site council, that's an area we
There's
could
one
work on.
task that-
I mean, that's something we could work on, because I mean, I think as a person who works with Kathy a lot on different, you know, needs of families, I think we would welcome any extra, I mean, because it's a lot, sometimes it's a little overwhelming. And we, you know, and so, yeah, I think that would be a great thing to work on. It's hard to think about reading and math when your stomach is hungry.
Yeah.
Or you don't have clean clothes, or your family's stressed out. It's really hard.
So this will be, this is given to families at conferences, and then we also review it again in the spring, and kind of go through the same process, and you can make any adjustments to it.
I'd like to add something about parent guardian.
Yeah.
Last one, have high expectations for my children. I think that could be omitted completely, just because I believe it goes without saying. And like, reading this can seem like it has the assumption that I would not,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So that one I think just goes without saying.
Not necessary to say it.
Well, so maybe you can change it, like, maybe we need these are like a shared value thing. So like, instead of signing on, like, I have high expectations for my children, I'm signing on, like, me and the staff, and we all have high expectations for the children. That wouldn't maybe feel so personal? Is that, I mean, because that's kind of, like, I see what you're saying, like, that would be, of course, why am I saying that? But like, as a community shared with the parents, I think that is something that we should agree to.
Almost like a belief.
Yeah.
Or maybe, yeah, like add high expectations to each of the other. Well,
Right,
it's
so the
already
student
in
is
staff.
missing it.
Yes.
The student saying I have high expectations for myself. And I would put it in the same spot on each place, just so it's
Oh,
clearly
yeah, that's
seen.
too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Nice adjustment.
I like that.
So instead of omitting, adding, as a student, I agree to have high expectations for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the parent guardian have high expectations for my children, and then as staff, have high expectations for all students.
Or have high expectations for myself and students.
Oh, like peers.
Yeah, for I'm speaking for teachers now. Me as a teacher, and yes, for my coworkers too,
Oh,
yeah. It's not just for me, but, yeah.
For our community, do that for everybody, students.
Yeah, that's what I took it as first, that it was a kid's name.
All right, so I know we're a lot over time, which is good. Yeah, you can, Ms. Sue. So the last thing, I'm not going to take a bunch of time, I just want to add some things so we can close. But in the past, so some of the things that Site Council has accomplished, and I want to talk about those because I want us to have some sort of action-oriented, task this year. It sounds like we already have one, but so in the past, Site Council has been responsible for adding a performing arts teacher or class here at Bancroft, so students could get more movement. That was before we had all this construction and beautiful space. So we've added a performing arts teacher. Site council was responsible for adding extra recess, going from 15 minutes to 30 minutes before it was a district policy. So that's one of the big accomplishments that site council had. Site council was very responsible for Bancroft gaining CPS status, or Community Partnership School status, where we were granted autonomies in curriculum, budget, time, and staffing. That has been sunsetted by both the MFT and the district, but that was a big accomplishment that the district, or the site council had for us, which also included having our own report card, which was aligned to the units of inquiry and had a section for scoring and rating EL students, which the district didn't have. We also went to our own trimester calendar, which we had 2 units of inquiry in each trimester, and so that was better. We were better able to report progress to parents. Math curriculum was another big piece. We're the only school in Minneapolis that does Houghton Mifflin math curriculum. Everyone else does the same thing. We're the only school, and that was a site council and teacher-driven accomplishment. And then the latest one, or the most recent one, was the homework policy, which was implemented fully last school year. So these are just some of the things that, as a group, that staff and parents of site council were able to move forward on, to implement. And so knowing some of those things that we've done, it sounds like, equipping staff with the knowledge base of resources that they can provide to families is one. But just thinking for our next meeting, what do you want to see, or some tasks that are related to kind of our purpose that you would like to see site council take on this year? And so that's just kind of to leave you with that little thought nugget. Right now, we don't have an October meeting scheduled because the last Thursday falls on Halloween. And then the last Thursday in November falls on Thanksgiving. And so I may be reaching out to those that are here to see if we can find an alternate date for either October or November. Because I do want to, we have some work to do, and I don't want to wait until December to have our next meeting. That just would be too much time in between.
Is there a meeting on calendar in December? Because that's winter break.
I believe I put it on the 14th, which is the Thursday before the last week. Nothing?
Nope, that's not on this one.
Great. There's no meeting till January. No, so I will reach out for dates for most likely October, so we can start thinking about some ideas and just move some things forward. So thank you all for being here. Hopefully we do all return in October when we have our next meeting. I appreciate the engagement and just leadership that you're showing, so I appreciate you. Thank you for sending your kids to Bancroft. I'll end all my meetings with that same phrase. Send your kids to Bancroft. We appreciate it.